Oh, hi there. Sorry to interrupt what is sure to be an incredible podcast experience, but we have bagged ourselves a copy of Tony Wood's new book. Remember Tony Wood, the author of Procrastinate? Well, he's got a new book coming out called Coping Mechanism, and it's amazing. And we've pre-ordered a copy for one of you, the listeners. To win this book, all you have to do is head over to Instagram, create a post of your own, featuring the words, "I am a crap skateboarder because." Fill in the gaps, tag us in the post, and then we'll pick one of you to win the book. Well, what you waiting for? Head over to Instagram and get involved.
If you love skateboarding but you're just not very good at jumping up and down on your favorite piece of wood, grab skateboarding, grab skateboarding podcast.
Oh, that could have been so bad, dude. Gosh.
That wasn't bad?
No, it didn't. Well, I can't feel this finger, but everything's fine.
Hello and welcome to the Crap Skateboarding Podcast, a weekly dive into skateboarding for the average skater, hosted by me, James.
And me, Jack.
In this podcast, two distinctly average skaters chat to people from all around the UK who represent a huge range of different aspects of our chosen sport, from the weird and wonderful and truly talented.
Each week we will be discussing a range of exciting topics regarding skateboarding in these uncertain times.
And this week, Jack, our topic is...
Drum roll, please.
6 Year Old Sidney.
The
Skateboarding boy.
boy.
You are getting more and more hoarse.
And we are really lucky to be joined this week by the author of 6 Year Old Sidney, the Skateboarding Boy, Dan Bryant. Hello, Dan.
Hi guys, nice to see you.
Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, Dan, to talk about your book. Could you start by just giving us a little bit of a background of yourself and your relationship with skateboarding?
Absolutely. So I've been skating since I was a little bit older than Sydney, as I think it says in the back of the book. So I inherited a board from my cousins. It was just one of those little deluxe surf flyers that was pretty tough to ride. So it was just kind of something you sat on and just rolled around. And then that just became more than just a toy, and it just became something that I wanted to do more and more. It was more interesting than riding a bike because it was a bit more sort of special. So it just took up a little bit more of my attention. It started to come out of the shed a little bit more frequently, and me and my brother would go skating a lot. And then sort of as the 80s developed, there was that whole sort of subculture thing started to really grow, and obviously it was appearing on TV and in movies, the old Back to the Future kind of scenario and that sort of stuff. So it became a little bit more of a badge of honor as well. So it was something to be proud of, and it grew from that sort of, I can stand up on it. I don't have to just sit down, and I can do this and I can do that. And then you go to a bigger school and you meet, like when we went to the upper school, there was a little influx of people from other towns, and you got to see all of their boards there, like the Jason Jessies and Gators and stuff. And it's like, oh, these are more interesting. Where'd you get those? Then you go to the skate shop. So it was Atlantis in Minehead was our local skate shop, and I managed to get my own board. And that was like the thing then. I had my first setup that you could actually turn. You could go off curbs without everything falling off of it. And that was like the roots for me. And it's just sort of grown from then. And now I'm a very old person, still doing it, still loving it.
Oh, that's amazing. I hope I'm like you when I grew up. That sounds...
I hope I grow up.
I hope we don't, to be honest. It sounds like none of us
that's pretty tragic.
Wanting to.
And I want to indulge in this. I don't want to make you feel old, Dan, at all, because we spend so much time trying to be so inclusive and not do that, because we are so often the older people at the skate parks now. But
Yeah,
I
I know
am
what you
also
mean.
fascinated.
Yeah.
So you have come, unlike a few of our guests, you know. So as far as our guests go, James, I don't know if you agree with this. We've kind of had two camps. We've had the people our age, the 30-somethings, who came to in the sort of the 90s to the turn of the millennium. We've got that era.
2000s boom.
We very much are. Or
Mhm.
we've got older people who came into skateboarding later, largely. People who are in their 40s and 50s who came into it later. I think you're the first person we've spoken to who your journey has come all the way through the sort of infancy of skateboarding and through that 80s
I'm a bit of a
period. Even
lifer.
the board you mentioned then. Yeah.
You're an OG.
And you said that the boards used to fall apart. We have not mentioned, like, tell us about that. Were they that bad?
They were shocking. Yeah. I actually believed because I'm 46, so I'm not dead yet, but pretty old. So the boards that we inherited from our cousins, they were, like a sort of penny board kind of thing, but a flat wooden board, British made, I think. You'll have to Google them, what they actually look like, and you'll understand how they shouldn't work, and they really didn't. I still got one of the wheels somewhere. I should have. I'll see if I can send you a photo of what the wheel actually looked like. But
these are ceramic wheels at this point. Are they still
it's
ceramics?
not quite that old. No, they were rubber, but they were kind of like that gnarly vulcanized black, almost like tire rubber from a car. They were just
right. Okay.
with loose
Resistance
bearings. The bearings were like in a little cup inside, and you could physically put them into the wheel and then do the little bolt up at the side. And if the wheel turned too much, it would just spill the bearings out, and you'd be off. That'd be it.
It sounds very much like with that kind of equipment, you really have to be into it to stick with it.
Yeah, you must have loved it.
It was that challenge thing that just surviving was enough of a challenge.
And we try and put people off those like skateboard shaped objects you get from Argos and things, but they sound like they're actually,
that was luxury.
leisurely compared to what you used to have to contend with.
Yeah.
6 Year Old Sidney, the Skateboarding Boy, is a children's book. It seems to be doing quite well. A lot of people are talking about it. My daughter loves it. Can you tell us a little bit about your idea for the book? Where did your inspiration come from? Give us maybe a little overview in case people aren't aware of what it is. Where did the book come from, effectively?
Yeah, so as a parent of 5 kids myself, I've had like the thousands. Well, no, maybe not thousands. I've read lots and lots of children's books over the years, and the ones that I really enjoyed, they did have to have that rhythm. They had to have a good bit of rhyme structure so that they're enjoyable to read. And I was frustrated with the ones that were becoming sort of ubiquitous in the school bags when they brought them home, and reading at bedtime. There's some really crap books that were really hard to work, hard to perform. I think you have to be able to perform the book. As a parent, you're reading it, and it's obviously more enjoyable as a child if it's got that sort of flow, because you can read it more comfortably, and you can kind of almost predict where it's going, which is nice, so that it doesn't jar. So I was getting more and more frustrated with how bad the bad books were, and I thought, well, I can write, I'm sure. So I just had a little play around. I did a lot of the poems that I just published in another book, Ode to a Toad, which is all about sort of nature, which is like another thing that I'm into. So it's all about toads and newts and that sort of stuff. So I knew I could string together some sort of verse, and I thought, well, I'll just play around with an idea. And they always say you should write about what you know if you're going to be writing. So I thought, well, I haven't read any or seen any books about skateboarding. My son at the time was just getting into skating. There was a local skate park that was being built around that time as well, so it was starting, it was something that was going on, and I thought, well, let's just see what I can do, and just started from the beginning with a vague idea and just let it grow and just wrote through it. And I kind of did it almost in one hit, just all the way through, which is how I tend to kind of write, just go sort of literally go with the flow. If I've got a rough idea of what could happen, and then see how the writing goes. That's kind of the writing process for that one.
That's quite organic.
Yeah, it really is.
I just want to kind of step back. We've gone on a little non-skating related tangent here. Now, your Ode to a Toad book, I looked at this recently. Am I right in thinking you did the illustrations for that?
Yeah. So fine art is what I trained in, so I had to.
'Cause they are excellent. They are really, really good.
Oh,
So,
thank you very much.
bit of background. I have a biology degree, and we had to do scientific drawings as part of a module. Okay. And
Okay.
I sucked. Was absolutely terrible at both doing it for the ecological side and doing it for the biomedical side. I was atrocious. So I'm looking at these, and my God, they are really, really good. Jack, if you had a chance to look at them, I was really, really impressed. Sorry, I just wanted to point that out because
That's cool. And somebody actually, I think it's the Dorset Reptile and Amphibian Arc or something. I can't remember what they're called, but they commissioned me to do a set of illustrations that they're going to use for their sort of educational stuff as well for school visits and stuff. So that's happened on the back of that book as well. So that's quite fun.
That's
Perfect.
really good.
Sorry,
I'll
back
have
to
a look.
skateboarding.
No, it's really cool. I mean, to be honest, Dan, I got a hands up that the things I've seen of your work are of 6 Year Old Sidney and the work you've done in Tony's book, as we said already. So I need to branch out. So I'll definitely have a look. That's really.
There will be many, many more books coming out, and the ode to the, I said about those illustrations that I got commissioned. That's paid for a new iPad, so I can finally upgrade the software that I use so that I can do some more painterly stuff digitally, which is going to be a hell of a lot easier. So my next books are going to be a different style again, so it's going to be all sorts.
Sorry, you am I right in thinking you were also the artist for 6 Year Old Sidney? Those are your pictures in that children's book as well.
Yeah, absolutely everything. So it's a one-man show, really.
Yeah. Did you illustrate that like as you went along? Did you do it scene by scene? Like, was it a case of writing it and then illustrating?
Yeah, I did the text first. That always comes first for me. And then once I had that from beginning to end, and I'd overcome the celebrity involvement because I needed to fit a certain character in. Once I decided who that character was and got that okay, then I could finish the story, because I couldn't do it until I crossed that threshold. And then it was a case of sketches, because they wanted to see some sketches of what was going to be, what my vision was, and that was the sort of the stages that I work in.
I'm not sure if we're going to drop that celebrity reveal quite yet, but
that's cool.
It's a significant
That's why I try to just dangle that carrot.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, it is a good one.
Like I say, Jack being the dad here is the one who has had a lot of time with your book, so I feel like he's quite attached to the story and the characters.
James can back up that again. It's all from brainwashing, but my daughter, we've got a mini in the garden. And she comes up to me and she goes, "Daddy, bored?" Well, it's like not even a mini now. It's just a death trap now. It will be a mini again, so it's been replied. But she comes up to me and she says, "Oh, bored." And I say, yeah, and fine. And we go out and she just uses my skateboard. I got her a child's one. She's not interested. So she goes out on the 8.5 and I just run alongside her on the mini. She holds my hands and she goes up and down. She loves it. It's her favourite thing to do. Yeah. So I think she already associates the book with things she's doing, and she points at the pictures and talks about it.
That's so exciting.
Asks for it. It is absolutely brainwashing, but it's the best kind.
Do your children skate, Dan?
My eldest two were terrible. They just couldn't get it. They hated it. But I think I was possibly a little bit young and maybe a little bit pushy, so they both got bought skateboards. Whereas it was a lot more organic. So Noah, my third son, is much more confident and competent because he sort of got into it through scooter riding as well. So I used to be the manager at the local skate park, Mine and I. So he came to work with me like every day during the holidays and stuff. So he was using the skate park all the time. So yeah, he picked up the skateboard and he can drop in on all the quarters and kick, turn, pump, and little sort of slashy grinds occasionally. But my youngest daughter's probably the most keen at the moment. So she's sort of just, she'll be 12 this year and she's absolutely loving it. She's dragging me down to the car park. We haven't really got much here to skate. It's sort of very rural, but yeah, she's down there She wants her own setup. She wants to do it from scratch. So this, for her birthday, she wants the board, she wants the grip tape, she wants the bolts, and she wants to do it all herself rather than my sort of hand-me-downs.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
That's cool. I suppose,
What you
like
want.
the book says, though, all you need is a curb. You know.
Yeah,
You've got a board and
exactly.
you've
Yeah.
All we had was a curb.
We haven't even got a
that's
curb though. We just got like these cobbly lumps, and that's about it.
What do your kids think of the story? Have you shared it with them?
Yeah. I tend to run what I write past them. So it's always good to have a little bit of age-appropriate sort of market research going on, and they were always pretty stoked. My daughter was off sick yesterday. Actually, I wrote another book because I had something in my mind. And knocked that one out yesterday, so I've got the text all sorted and made 2 of my kids read that to make sure it was up to par. And yeah, they gave it the seal of approval, so that'll be next on the agenda as well.
Is that one a skateboarding based one, or is that a little bit more?
This one? This one's going to be about food chains. So I'm sort of pushing it towards the primary reading curriculum.
Educational.
Yeah, exactly. So I've done it. I think I've pitched it right age-wise. It'd be quite a fun one to illustrate.
Nice. I can clarify as a primary teacher that like so many of the books that we send home are the worst books because they are all they are terrible. Because and the thing is, everyone knows that. There's no pretense about it. They're all written in this really jarring way to kind of get particular reading skills in.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Enjoyable as a result, And it's horrible because they go from sort of reception, from their young childhood, they read books that are all about rhythm, because the important sort of early reading skills are those things you've mentioned, those things that are so prevalent in 6 Year Old Sidney, right? The rhythm, the rhyme, the structure of the sentences, so that they can kind of actually turn the page and understand how a book is structured. And then it gets to a point where that's all stripped away and it's all just particular skills, and they are like pulling teeth.
I was just saying, so you said you knocked out the story and kind of you had it out fairly quickly. How did you develop that story? How did it come to mind? How did you produce the plot of the book?
I knew that there had to be like a basic kind of story arc, that it has to start off somewhere, you set the scene, then there's a crescendo, and then there's an issue that needs to be resolved, and a kind of happy ending would be the ideal, as it's pitched for children. We don't want to depress them. So yeah, I just started to think about the life of somebody who absolutely adores skateboarding, and started describing that, and then just followed it. But the fun, sort of the parallel part to the idea of the story itself, which kind of just grows along a rough path, is crafting the words, because you're working in rhyme. It's that interplay with words all the time, and is that the right word? Can I find another word that will work better there, that will give me this rhyming structure, that I'll be able to get that in there, that will sound better? And that's the fun. That's the real fun of it, and I absolutely adore that. So that's kind of how it goes with me, and it's just like playing around with those words all the way through until it gets the 2 veins going at the same time. So you've got some sort of a good story, but you're just dragging along with a really nice rhythm and fun words and the best word for the job, and that's a real laugh. Love that.
I was just going to say, you're talking about finding the plot. There's got to be a story arc in terms of this child getting a skateboard, deciding he loves it, practicing all the time.
Yeah.
Is there an autobiographical element to this book by chance?
There's got to be an element, all apart from like getting a board given to me and then having the amazing career and the covers in the magazine. That didn't quite happen, but it's that fantasy life that you do have. I think certainly if you start when you're a kid, it's the dream. But back then it was just to get a sponsor, just to get some free stickers is like the goal at that time. But it's out of that passion of doing something that you absolutely love, and you just want to do it, and then you do get a little glimmer. It's like, well, actually you can do more than this with this. And that is, you see it. We followed the all of the careers, like Tom Penny and Carl Shipman back in the 90s and 2000s, British skaters, Alex Mole, that go on to become something much more. Mike Manzuri, I'll just just names that have just gone off and gone over to the States. Obviously, they've gone over there to make them make their name. But that's the fantasy, isn't it? And I think we've all sort of felt that at some point with whatever we're into as a kid. So it'll be like football for a lot of kids, but for the better kids, it's skateboarding.
And you're right. For most skaters, no matter what sort of generation they grew up, so obviously you're the skating generation before us, and then the ones after us.
Yeah.
For most skaters, there are set points that every skater can relate to, and that every skater wants or aspires to.
Yeah.
And there are set sort of events that every skater experiences.
That's a beautiful thing, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I'd say, because I got given my first board, saying, a lot of people's first board is something that are handed to them, they're hand-me-downs, or they're given them. And obviously, like when we were teenagers, we wanted to get sponsored. How many videos did we film, Jack? And like people were handing out the tapes to the local shops and everything, again, just for stickers. So these sort of key points that every kid dreams of, they're all,
and it wasn't
the same
easy
thing, really.
That was when that was before even the mini DV, when we just had that massive camcorder, and you'd have to run it through that machine. Was it called like a Magibox? So you had to run it in real time, get all the clips off it to put onto a separate tape, to then put onto the computer.
Yeah.
It was so
I imagine it was
long.
harder before that, mate.
Yeah.
God, yeah, we had like one video that was ever made because we knew somebody who had a camera for the day. So they came up and we were just filming a load of crap, like the worst stuff ever. Little bits to camera, trying to be funny, trying to be cool, and just trying to cram in a whole Bones Brigade video in about 20 minutes. And it was just terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Does it still exist?
It has to exist. I've got a box of VHS tapes in the shed, and as long as they're not all damp, it's in there somewhere, I'm sure.
Amazing.
I definitely had a copy.
Someone's going to find that in like 100 years' time. That's going to be your legacy.
Yeah.
That's your homework, Dan, is to try and dig that out.
Yeah. God.
Oh yeah, we were talking about, like you said, James, and you, Dan, as well, about how like we've all had these kind of fantasies that we live vicariously through these things, and I think that's a really wonderful thing, because regardless of what happens, it just breeds creativity. And then I think that's good for us as human beings. It's just to be creative. It's just such a natural thing that we need to do to be happy. And we were talking recently, so we've talked to loads of creative people and really good skateboarders, creative people. There's that huge Venn diagram. But two that spring to mind, right, are the two actual skater-owned skateboard companies we've spoken to. So we've spoken to Onda Skateboards, and we've spoken to Was That Switch, who started recently.
Oh, yeah.
And they're both like the best dudes, really cool, really passionate about skateboarding and building communities, which is what it's all about, And they have both said, both of those two people, when we asked, like, why did you want to do this? Both of them were saying, well, when we started skateboarding, everybody wanted to have their own skateboard company, right? Like, as in, Tony Hawk had his own skateboard company, and Rodney Mullen had his own skateboarding company, and Jamie Thomas had his own skateboarding company. And actually, we wanted to have our own skateboarding companies, and we used to, like, everyone would draw graphics as a kid in their, like, homework diaries at school, whatever it was, and then it always have the designs and the ideas. So, you can make peace with the fact that you might not be a professional skateboarder when you're doing it in your 30s. But you could do that. You could still create something out of it, out of that passion. And it's like your book, I suppose, is your thing. You are using that passion to create something.
Yeah, and along those lines, using my book, I've been assured that I will be, by Karma Skateboards, we're doing a collab, so that we are going to have a Sydney skateboard, like a kid's board.
Awesome.
So I'll have my own board, essentially.
That's wicked.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
with Karma as well.
I know.
With Karma, and they're willing to do another range based on the O to a Toad illustrations as well. So we'll do like a UK wildlife series. That's what we're looking at down the line. So
now
you have to get me one of those.
Have now
I
made
can imagine them as a whole
subplot.
series. White dip boards, I think they would look sick.
That would look
so
the
Sydney,
good. Right.
the Sydney and Sadie board will be really interesting. So that they want to do a Karma Kids range, so it's going to be designed for smaller people, and they were thinking of how to launch it, and I just hit them up at the right time. But that would be a good sort of way to go. So they're really excited about it.
Mate, those art ones would be sick. Like if honestly, I'm gonna have to start saving up because I'm gonna need one of those on the decks with the you know what they call
with
the band
mariachi musician.
Yeah, mariachi player. And I'm gonna need to get some of these nature illustrations on my wall as well because that would look amazing.
Yeah, exactly. This is all super exciting. Now you mentioned there briefly. What was the name? So you've got Sidney and what was the other name?
Oh yeah, Sadie.
Can you tell us about Sadie, please?
So, some of the feedback that I had from the skateboard community in like one of the skateboard forums, they were saying, and actually through Facebook as well, can we have a girl version? You know, this is fine, but it's very male. It's 6-year-old Sidney, the skateboarding boy, and even though that's, for one thing, it's quite binary. I'm not there. I'm not able to address that entirely yet, but that's not to say that I haven't got a story fleshed out that will deal with that issue as well. But I wanted to acknowledge the huge rise and prominence of girls skateboarding because, you know, for one, I've got a daughter that loves skateboarding. So, you know, for the purpose of this story, it was right because it was, you know, I was a boy writing it as a boy. And that was my experience, but now I've got more to draw on. So I wanted to do something with a girl character because there's the only female in that book is Sidney's mum, which is not that great. So I thought, okay, I'll start sketching. So I started, which is unusual. I started with a sketch and I sort of sketched one of Sidney's friends, Sadie, pigtails, pretty generic, just like a skater with pigtails. And thought, okay, let's try and do something. It was over the Christmas holiday that I was getting this idea. So I thought, well, let's do a Christmas story. There's no skateboarding Christmas books at all. So let's just do that, something different. And I could go really quite wild with that because you've got the whole Father Christmas kind of story that you can play with. So there's a lot of magic involved. So there's quite a sort of fantastical story. It's all written, it's all illustrated, and it is being formatted with the publisher at the moment, so they're sort of sorting through that as part of their massive part of the projects. So before Christmas we should get that out.
That's really cool, and I like that because I don't think it's no flaw with 6-year-old Sidney because that will be the experience of so many.
Yeah,
but like you said, having a daughter myself, I could definitely understand that. Yeah. And as a teacher, that kids see themselves in these things and project themselves onto what they see. So actually having that will raise those aspirations for those young people who will see that and think, I could do this, you know, this is something I can be involved in.
Yeah, it totally normalizes skate lifestyle for boys and girls, like, you know, exactly the same. They're playing a game of skate in the book at the very first page.
That's great. Oh, that's is this something you've widely spoken about, or is that an exclusive?
I did mention it on Matt's podcast as well, so it's out there. So it's not scoop.
Oh, so close.
So close.
That is so exciting. And also now by the time I've exhausted 6-year-old Sidney now, Christmas will come around.
Yeah, when you're sick to death of that yellow helmet, there'll be another book to look at.
I was going to say, it's funny you mentioned the yellow helmet because Jack has to contend with the yellow helmet when he reads that book to his daughter. He has to contend with the bright green helmet when he skates with me. So
you know, we're at an age now, helmets are important. I completely support you with that. It's the smart thing to do. It is the smart thing to do.
Yeah, I've stopped trying to be cool at the skate park a long time ago.
Wait, you used to try? This is a lovely lead-in, actually, right? Because we're talking about the importance of like padding up and how that culture is changing a bit, you know. And actually, one of the big people behind that whole thing of the importance of padding up, it's true, right? He's been a big ambassador of it. Is the what do we call him? The big reveal, the cameo. The deus-ex-machina character of your book, and I think we need to address this because I've nearly tripped up on this so many times. Dan, talk about this character in your book. Talk about how that happened, because I just feel like we're dancing around the elephant.
The elephant in the room.
Let's just rip the plaster off.
Oh, don't call him an elephant.
Well, elephant skateboards,
Yeah. So, as I said earlier, I needed some sort of some character to come in and step in and help Sidney out to drive the story forward to its conclusion, because he destroys his board through all of his hard work, and he needs to continue. He wants to continue this contest because he's doing really well. So I needed a pro, ideally. So I thought, well, who would I have wanted if I was a little kid skating, back in '89 or whatever? And it would have to have been Mike V. So, okay, right, modern era. I mean, this was back in, I think it was 2014 that I wrote it. So I thought, well, okay. I went to the street plant. There wasn't street plant then; it was Elephant website, I think it was, and found the email address there. And I just thought, well, I'll just email him. See, I didn't even think it would get in front of his eyes, but sent it out anyway, saying, I've got this book, I'd really like you to be in it. And I think it was the same day I got an email response back. Sounds cool. Can you give me some of the text and some of the images? So I sent him the full text, and I quickly knocked up some sketches of Sidney to just for the first couple of pages, so he had an idea of what I was thinking about. And he said, yeah, sounds rad, count me in. So I had Mike Vallely in my book, so I could continue and finish the book, because until that point I couldn't really go any further, because there's a bit of a rhyming structure that involved his name, and that saved it, so I could carry on.
What was the rhyme that involved his name?
Let's see, I've got the book here. Well, young man, said the stranger, my name is Mike V, and I'd like you to think about skating for me. I was watching you skate, and I liked what I saw. I can give you free boards every month, maybe more. Sidney's eyes grew as wide as his old skateboard wheel, and he shook Mike V's hand, and that was a deal.
Amazing.
Thank you.
See, there's that cadence you were talking about. That nice, easy flowing rhythm.
It's really satisfying, isn't it? It's it's like Dr. Zeus with skateboarding. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
and really flows.
Just getting that, and it's kind of freaking me out now that it's a book now that is, it's kids' favorite book. If they've got any interest in riding a skateboard, it's going to be their book that they're going to remember as an adult. Like I remember Mr. Nosey or whatever. That is their book, and I'm already getting. Like World Book Day, there was two kids that are dressed up as Sidney, and they shared their pictures on Instagram, and it's that's amazing.
Yeah, people
so rewarding.
Even on Amazon, the reviews are just a bunch of 5 stars, and everyone's saying how much their kids enjoy it. You're having an impact. Actually, having a real impact.
There's so many books. And there's nothing wrong with this, I suppose, but you're talking about football as an example, if that's an interest you're in as a child. And it's also, we're both dads, and we've probably both admitted to having tried to encourage our children towards these things, right? But nearly every dad in the UK is probably guilty of doing that to their children regarding football, or at least trying to. And
exactly,
in terms of children's books for football, there's not just one for every child. There's one for every team. Even if it's a 3rd or 4th tier team, they'll have a children's book for every city, and it's so prevalent, which is fine. But just like us, not every that's not going to resonate with everyone, and it's really wonderful. And skateboards on the rise with things like the Olympics now being such a big thing. It's going to be on the rise, and I think it's brilliant that just that it exists. I just think it's so wonderful. I think it's fair to say there's probably a strong moral to the story. Like all good children's stories, it tugs on the heartstrings, and I think it's got a really good heart. And I think it really comes down to having a really strong moral message. If you agree with that, you might not. But if you do agree with that, what do you think the moral of the story is? What message would you like to put out into the world to children with this skateboarding book?
I think there's kind of there are themes running all the way through it, and the constant is the determination and the passion and following that passion. But the big lesson part is that even if things don't seem like they're going your way and it's all falling apart, you have no idea what the next chapter is going to be. And if you keep following your dream and your passion and be authentic, you will see progress in some way. You will get reward in some way. It might not be what you're expecting, but you know, things can come back around in interesting ways. So always be true to yourself and keep trying. I think that's kind of where I'm going with it.
Joe, Mike V fits so perfectly into that.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Mike Vallely myself, and I love his skateboarding. And I think part of the appeal for me of Mike Vallely is that he is by nature polarizing, because he skateboards in a way that there are some fantastic skateboarders in the world, and all credit to them. But they could be another skateboarder, you know, because they are just doing tricky tricks, you know, like flips fantastically and cleanly. Whereas Mike V skates in a way that really only he could do that. You know, his own heart, soul, and creativity is
there are very few. Yeah, very few skateboarders that you can tell by their silhouette. You know, you could see them, just their silhouette moving, and you could pick them out. And so growing up, it was Matt Hensley and Mike V. They were like the main ones that you could pick out just by their stance, how they move. And there's something really, really sort of fluid and cat-like about both of the way they skate, and it's really endearing. It's that dynamism,
And I suppose the idea that he doesn't have to, you don't have to appeal to everyone or be regarded as the best to have a really big, wonderful impact into the world, because there are still people, they're wrong, but you know, I know that he won a few years ago. He won the game of skate at the Berwick's, and some people were going mad. People were really angry about it, saying it's not fair because his tricks are not 360 flips. Basically, it was like he does this weird stuff, and I thought, I mean, that's balls, right? Because like actually they're all tricks, and if objectively he's the best at a game of skate because he's got the most tricks, so objectively you think he's better, but also like that's just, it's okay that people don't, you don't have to love him, but
no, exactly, he's there for those that appreciate him.
He's true to himself and what he does. You know, not everyone's going to love him, but the people who do are going to love him.
If you look at people who do skate a little bit differently, so if you look at obviously Rodney Mullen is a good example of that. He skates very differently. He's got a very unique style. Look at people like Andy Anderson, who is just frankly too good for anything really, but he skates in a very unique, distinctive way. Mike Vallely is another person like that. Gu Miyagi, all these people who take a skateboard and do stuff that is extremely impressive and technical, but isn't your sort of rote tray flips, varial flips, heel flips. That kind of the way that frustration is directed towards Mike V for winning game of skate by skating unconventionally isn't necessarily directed to other skaters who also skate unconventionally. And it's wondering where that barrier is, that maybe some people go, oh, Andy Anderson's great because he's really creative. Mike V, oh no, not what's he doing? He shouldn't be winning game of skate. It's a weird kind of I don't know what it is. It's a weird discrepancy, isn't there, really, there about people who do skate in a really creative way.
Yeah, we're not the big huggy family that we want to be, really. We're not quite as inclusive as we'd like to think we are, I think. Yeah. Not allowed to push Mongo.
Oh, shots fired, Jack.
Oh, what did he say?
I said about you're not allowed to push Mongo, for example, or carry your board, more grab. It's like, Jesus Christ. I grew up pushing Mongo, and I trained myself, sadly, to push really weakly, regularly, and I'm kind of angry at myself.
No, but you're right though, right? It's fine, we'll leave that, because it's true, right? Because James knows, I can push regular, and there was a period when I first moved to Bristol when I did that. I was like, okay, I'm gonna, because people give you a hard time, and I was like, all right, I've been skating Mongo for years, I'm gonna push regular. And I can push regular. My right foot's a lot stronger than my left foot, and I'm goofy. So it makes more sense in terms of power to push Mongo, but I was like, I'll do it. and I can do it, but it's no fun. It's just not. No. It's not a natural feeling. It's not as strong, and I don't enjoy it as much. And then I think I had this moment where I had this epiphany of like, I'm not going to be a pro skater.
Exactly.
Right? Why am I doing it? I'm doing it to have fun. So why would I spend my life trying to do something that feels worse to impress a bunch of people I don't know or care about?
Yeah, we're trying to fit into these little cookie cutter molds, and we're not like that. We're not all the same. And why do we do that to ourselves to try and fit this mold?
Whenever I'm listing my favorite skateboarders, I'm going to fire a shot now. He'll never hear it. Whenever I'm listing my favorite skateboarders, I always leave Chris Cole off, even though I love Chris Cole in the 0 days. And obviously that's because he's a fucking sellout. Because he pushed Mongo for so long, and he was so good. Like when he pushed Mongo still, that was when he was doing like the Love Gap, and he was doing all that insane stuff. He was so good. And then just because like a pretty man with a nice t-shirt and a board deal told him he wasn't allowed to do it, he stopped doing it and made himself look good. And
you're calling Jamie Thomas pretty?
I mean, he is beautiful, isn't he? But I think that is a terrible message to send to people. That's like the ending of Grease, but the skateboarding version. Like, Chris Cole was a rad skater, and he should have been like held up as a look how good this Mongo skateboarder is, right? And I hate that he was made to change, and I hate that he did it. Oh, yeah.
What we left with Bill Danforth, and that's it. Who was the other one? There's Bill Danforth and somebody who skated for Blind as well.
We've spoken loads about like your book and about your skateboarding and the journey through both, and kind of expressing your love for skateboarding through this outlet and gearing that towards children, which is so awesome. However, we haven't really asked you about your own influences. So be it your writing or skateboarding, or both, you know, do you have any influences that you feel shine through that really are prevalent in either of those things you do?
Yeah. So writing wise, I think I use, for the sort of rhyming structure, Julia Donaldson is a strong influence, because 9 times out of 10 she will bang out a good book. I don't like The Highway Rat. I think that was really awful. It's really clunky, and
controversial.
Shots fired again. Donaldson.
Well, let's get her on the podcast.
Yeah. Skateboarding wise, my influences change. My favorite skater will change on a daily basis, because I've seen, really I got heavily into it in like 88, 89. That was when I started. So you were looking at Mike V, Public Domain, you know, watch that clip, that's just amazing. Ray Barbie, and then transitioning into Guy Mariano, all the way through Coston was amazing. So all of these like linchpins all the way through. But now I'm getting older and creakier. I think a lot of my my tastes tend to veer towards more of the no complying, slappying kind of level, sort of Eric Dressen. I'm riding a Eric Dressen Everslick at the moment, which I'm loving. So it's very much that kind of thing that feeds my passion, and it's a lot of repetitive stuff, really. I'm not learning much new at the moment, but I'm not skating as much because I'm working a lot, so it gets difficult.
Oh, I could have been so bad, dude. Gosh.
That wasn't bad?
No, it didn't. Well, I can't feel this finger, but everything's fine.
Before we go, Dan, this has been a pleasure, first of all.
Likewise.
But this is the part where you get to please just plug yourself like crazy. Tell us anything that you have out for sale now, where people can find it, anything you've got in the pipeline, anything you want to promote. It's your time to just plug away.
Yeah,
cool.
Drop your socials.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So obviously 6 Year Old Sidney and Ode to a Toad you can get from shookbop.com. You can find me on Instagram. I am Dan Bryant Author. I'm also on Facebook as Dan Bryant Children's Author and Illustrator, something long-winded like that. But it's mostly the same content, so I just sort of double post that sort of stuff. There'll be plenty more books coming out over the coming years. There's The White Feather will be coming next, I believe, which is another one that's going to be lovely for sort of school-age children. I think you're going to really dig it. It's got a completely different graphical style, so it's incorporating photography of my local rivers, as well as some scanned digital illustrations overlaid on the top of that. So that's going to be really fun. And it's just to load more books, basically. I'm just got like a stack that are already written and illustrated that are waiting in the wings.
Churning them out.
Yeah. That's one thing lockdown was pretty good for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. A one-man powerhouse. It is you're an inspiration to anyone creative who wants to have a go and just try and create something. The fact you're doing all that yourself.
Keep doing it. Yeah, there's no reason why you can't these days. It's all there at your fingertips. If you've got an idea, and half an idea will do.
It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, Dan. Take it easy, mate.
Well, have a lovely evening. We'll catch you up later.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'll finish my wine.
Do it.
Nice.
See ya.
If you love skateboarding but you're just not very good at jumping up and down on your favorite piece of wood,